And you here on SCW, the Wrestling Channel. Hi, and welcome back once again. My name is Steve. I'm joined in the hot seat today with James, and we're going to be talking this week in wrestling. So we're going to be talking about our favourite points from the week. Maybe if we've got any that are not so favourable, we'll be touching on everything throughout the week. But first, and before we get started, I need to welcome James to the show. It's been a while since we've had you on. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on, and it's been a while since we've been able to have you on the show. But you've also been recently involved with a podcast of your own. I was wondering if you could give it a plug for our listeners here today.
Yeah, of course. I'm doing one with a good friend of mine. We set it up probably about a year ago now, which seems like a long time ago, but it's called This Week in Metropolis. It's not wrestling focused or anything like that. It's purely pop culture, what's going on in the world right now, really, and we take a look back on things that have kind of we've noticed over the past 7 days. It's a weekly show. It's just a laugh, really. We don't take it too seriously. It's our perspective and our views on things, and we have a laugh doing it. We try to steer away from kind of political stuff and anything of too serious. There's enough news about that going on. We try and find the weird and wonderful. We talk about technology that's coming out. We talk about movies, games. It's real fun, and thanks for giving it a plug.
Not at all. But you can listen to it on all good podcasting apps. I believe Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find it.
Yeah, we're across all the podcasts platforms, so that's good. And we're also on social media as well. We've got an Instagram account, we've got a Twitter page, we've got a Facebook page. Just search for This Week in Metropolis and you'll be able to follow us there for all the weekly updates on when shows are coming out.
Absolutely. Well, I recommend it. Obviously, as an avid listener myself, I recommend everyone to go and check it out. And what I will do is I will leave some links in the description for everybody if you're listening on YouTube. I'm going to try and see if I can as well put this on Spotify as well. So hopefully you can leave it in the description as well so people can go and find This Week in Metropolis and can go and check it out. Very popular thing you do on your show as well is some top fives you've done recently during this series as well. Top 5 gigs, and your most recent one that you did this week was top 5 box sets. So I decided to do a nice little spin as we've done This Week in Metropolis. We've got This Week in Wrestling, and we're going to have your top 5 moments of the week we're going to discuss in wrestling. So I thought that could be a fun podcast topic this afternoon. And if anyone wants to get involved here on SCW and leave their suggestions, then feel free to do so in the comments below. But with James, without further ado, I think it's time to get into the first point this week.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my first one, I'm going to take it right back to the beginning of the week on Monday from Raw, which is I wanted to speak to you about your thoughts on Hurt Business, which is the faction that MVP's setting up. Obviously, at the moment, I don't know whether you know me, Steve. I'm a wrestling fan, but I'm probably more of a casual fan now. I don't sit and watch every show available. I might watch the odd one here and there if I get the opportunity. But the faction as it is at the moment is MVP, Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, which is the latest addition to my knowledge. I don't think there's anyone else. And then you add, is it Vink and Thorne, which were at some point they were kind of included, but I don't know whether that's as prominent.
Well, they seem to have disappeared from TV over the last number of weeks. I'm not quite sure what's happened with them either. I still am unsure if they're meant to be part of the Raw roster or not. But of course, we've seemed to be focused on the main three, as you say, there with MVP, Lashley, and the newest addition, of course, and as well, the new 24/7 champion is Shelton Benjamin. I agree with you. I think that this was definitely a strength from Raw this week. I mean, like you said, the Hurt Business. I like a good stable. I like a good faction. And I think that's what we need to applaud MVP's work since coming back to WWE. He's really been a star on the microphone. I love the VIP lounge. It's at one point probably the only lounge or VIP area open in the world at one point. So he's done well during the pandemic, hasn't he?
Yeah, he definitely has. And I think when he came back, I thought it might be a good use of him for, like you say, the MVP lounge, just to kind of have a bit of promo work, because his promos are and always have been pretty good. I didn't realise the amount of crossover there is with previous work with Lashley and TNA. And it weren't until recently where I looked that up and saw that they'd almost had their own faction. I think it had a different name back then, but so they've obviously got chemistry together from there, which WWE's kind of putting all their money on at the moment, really, because they do seem to be the star attraction other than Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I know, I agree with that. And yeah, of course, they had a group, like you say, it was the Beatdown Clan, if I'm not mistaken. They had Samoa Joe in that stable as well. So it'd be interesting what happens when he returns to action. Maybe they might go full reunion in WWE style. That would be interesting if they were to do that. But I agree, they're almost like an attraction, and almost, like you say, near the level of Drew McIntyre. I mean, Drew McIntyre, of course, only recently had a matches with MVP and Lashley on Raw. So, no, I think that it's a good thing. I'd be interested to see where it's going to go going forward, if there'll be more members. There has been a link of where it would be linked like a former Nation of Domination stable. Would you be a fan of that idea?
I'm not sure I'd be a fan of it because there's no kind of link to the previous Nation of Domination. If you had an ex-member of that, although realistically, who would they get now?
Yeah.
I think that would be my only disappointment with that. It'd be like there being a new DX with no previous DX members, even if it's Triple H in the Ric Flair role, as an older, or even Shawn Michaels. But yeah, I wouldn't like to necessarily see it as the new Nation of Domination. I think stick with the Hurt Business. I think that's it's a good line for them and a good name for their stable. And I'm just intrigued with the direction they're going with. Obviously Lashley, who clearly is the most dominant out of all the members, and yet and I thought they'd probably push him towards the US title with Apollo Crews, and now they seem to have flipped that, and you've got MVP, who seems to be the man, where I thought he would probably take a step back from more of the in-ring action.
Yeah, it almost feels like MVP is almost like the mouthpiece for these guys, but he's still getting his time in the ring as well and still pushing for the championships. I do hope that Lashley continues to go for the world title picture, myself personally, because I think the guy should be towards the top of the card. He's genuinely got the look, and with the right guidance management, you would think that he could be championship worthy. Could you see as well potentially that these guys could even mesh together and be in the tag team division?
Potentially. I think maybe that's somewhere down the line that they could do that, because at the moment it seems like they're all going for individual titles, and I wonder whether the link that they had with Vink and Thorne would be that they'd push them towards that direction. But like I say, if that's not going ahead anymore, then maybe. But I think it's interesting that they're trying to put gold on. Well, at least two of them at the moment have gone down that route.
Absolutely. Gold creates credibility, and that's what we like to see in WWE. And it's definitely, I agree with you, it's definitely one of the high points of Monday Night Raw at the moment, is to see what they're going to do next. Because, I mean, like I say, I've said it already once during these first few minutes, MVP's done fantastic work, and I hope it continues, and really enjoying the work they do, and intrigued to see where they'll head in towards SummerSlam. I think that it's definitely an exciting time to see what's going on with those guys' careers. Is there anything more you'd like to talk about the Hurt Business before we go to our point number 2?
Oh, go on, mate. That's fine.
Yeah, well, fire away. What would be your second point from this week?
So the next one was on NXT. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on Keith Lee relinquishing the North American title so soon after winning it. It seemed like there was such a big build for him to become a double champion. Or even if Adam Cole had kept him and then won the North American as well. And then for only 2 weeks later for him to give it up. I mean, the promo in where he states to give other people a chance is credible in that respect. But it just seems so weird that they've pulled the plug on it, being even not letting it go to at least another pay-per-view or something like that.
No, I agree. I think it's almost, I want to say, lazy booking to a certain degree, because although the thing is, there's a plus point in this and what makes it a highlight of the week, and there's a point where I feel negative on it, because I would have liked to have seen Keith Lee drop the belt rather than him just relinquish it. Like you say, so much work was put in and made this big fuss of being a double champion. Last week, he defended both belts at the same time. He only really needed to defend one, really, against Dominik Dijakovic, really. Didn't need to defend two. It almost feels that you could argue that perhaps the booking team have booked themselves arguably into a corner. But I would have liked to have seen, like I say, Keith Lee drop the belt himself and Karrion Kross being the guy to do it. I think it would have added more steam towards what looks to be their current direction going perhaps into the next TakeOver. But from a positive standpoint, I think it's really good that so many superstars seem to want to fight for it in the triple threat matches leading to a ladder match. What are your thoughts with the direction of the North American Championship?
I mean, the ladder match for me will be a great way of bringing in new. I mean, even just the people that you've already had one person qualify, haven't we?
We've got Bronson Reed so far as
Which I
qualified.
think is a great move because he's from the second he's come onto the scene, I've felt there's something about him, and it's been a steady build. And I think the matches that he had with Karrion Kross, actually, he came off really strong. It didn't necessarily bury him, but he's also had a few others. And then to win this triple threat, which you definitely have him as the outsider when he's up against Gargano and Roderick Strong.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't necessarily think he'd be the pick, but when you see the rumours of who might be in this match, I think Dexter Lumis has been linked to step up into that. I think that they're the sort of people that need to be taking that next step if they're going to get into a title picture.
I completely agree. I think now this needs to become the mid-card championship. I was discussing this with George just the other day here on SCW, and it almost feels a bit like the championship when it had the likes of Adam Cole. We've had Keith Lee now having it, and other superstars as well. We've had almost like main eventers of the NXT level holding that championship. And although it adds such high prestige, you could argue and say that this championship is supposed to put someone to that next level. You think when they become the champion, they might have the chance then when they drop the championship to move up the level to the World Championship picture. Kind of like a Velveteen Dream when he was the champion. He kind of elevated himself further up the card with that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it can only, as long as they don't go back on it later. So even if someone comes off of this, it makes me think of like when Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental title in a ladder match. Wasn't it the next night that he had it taken off of him again? It was a pretty quick turnaround. I'm pretty sure he didn't hold it, where that was almost like his first step. I mean, that was on the main roster at the time, but as long as they try to carry on building and hopefully don't bury the others that are in that, because when you think back to when you had the first ladder match for the North American title, that was, like you say, the people that were in that match were the ones that are now the ones who are top level talents in NXT. So you hope that it can do the same for the others, and I think that they are starting to kind of come into their own now, these developing stars.
Absolutely. Well, I say we've got Bronson Reed, and we've got the triple threat set for next week. We've got Dexter Lumis in there, Timothy Thatcher, and one that I would love to be an outsider for this belt, and Finn Balor. Who would you like to see advance to the ladder match from those three?
I think if I had to pick one, I'm such a big fan of Dexter Lumis in this at the moment. I think his character work is incredible, but also his actual wrestling reminds me of an old school. It reminds me of Stone Cold. His moveset and the way he wrestles, so similar. He's probably actually got a few more moves in his locker as well than Stone Cold had, but it's kind of the Lufez Perez, you know, the even just like a backdrop that he does, you know, there's so many similarities. But anyway, I digress. He for me would be my pick, but I think what they'll probably do, because I'd like to see Thatcher in there as well, but I think what they'll probably do is have a few of these qualifying matches, and then you might have three that didn't make it in their matches in a final qualifier. That's how I think they'll probably go. And then, although you wouldn't want to see someone like Thatcher miss out, I think if it is him who misses out, or even if it's Lumis, then they'll probably get another shot towards the end.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I think that's a great booking strategy as well, though, because always they have to find 15 singles competitors. So it would be good to have that last match, to have perhaps the losers maybe get their opportunity, maybe in a battle royal or some sort of way they can do it for a big match on NXT. But as for any other superstars that you'd like to see in those spots, like we say, we mentioned a couple of names there. Is there any others that scream to mind for them final two spots?
There was one other guy. Name escapes me right this second. I don't know. I think obviously Dijakovic you probably have in the mix for that, but he'll probably be taken out now, I reckon, for a bit. I don't know whether he'll come back after last week's show. Damian Priest is the other one, I think, who will probably go up, because he seemed to have turned his character now. He's more of a face now, it seems. They've done the turn with him, so he could be another good option to stick in there. How about you? Who are you looking at to add into it?
Well, I kind of agree with your thought process. I mean, like you said, Dijakovic, he was annihilated last week, so I'd be surprised if he came back anytime soon. But if I had to pick my 5 now, I think Dexter Lumis probably could win this week. But I would like to see Timothy Thatcher maybe win the last chance to get in. I think that would be good. Damien Priest, as you say. And, of course, I'm going to have to do it in the best impression that I can. But Cameron Grimes is going to have to be my final pick because he just seems to be finding a lot of way onto NXT TV at the minute. He's quite obnoxious. And I think the idea of him in the ladder match, I think, could pull off the upset somehow. I don't know. I have a sneaky suspicion he would be quite a good candidate to hold that belt right now.
Yeah, I think just as you started listing off a few there, Cameron Grimes came to mind because, again, he's got momentum at the moment. I know he eventually got beat by Damien Priest, but the matches that he's had in the build-up to that, he's beaten Balor. I'm pretty sure he's beaten a couple of other kind of top-drawed guys. And it's another good character. They're building good characters in NXT. That's why it's still, for me, my favourite brand at the moment.
Absolutely, indeed, yeah. Well, I must admit, I do enjoy the work of NXT and where the direction they're going with all their superstars. But I think we should move on to point number 3, and I believe it's another show we're moving. Is it another show on Wednesday, by any chance?
It is. It's on AEW. I want to get your thoughts on Adam Page because... It's Adam Page, isn't it? I've just made up a name there. He's in my head, I've got the feeling they're going to do some big double bluff with him because it seems like there's obviously friction. I mean, the friction between him and Kenny Omega has been there since even before they were tag champs, and it looks like the Young Bucks are always coming in to kind of bring them back together again. And you always have this feeling that Page is going to be the one to turn. I'm starting to get the feeling now that it's actually going to be Omega who turns and goes back to his kind of cleaner gimmick from when he was in New Japan. I just feel like we've kind of been on this road now where we think it's so obvious that something's going to happen, and then they're just going to flip it on its head and do the other way. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a fantastic point you bring up there. One thing that makes me feel that certainly you could be bang on the money here as well was that we had I believe it was a 6-man tag just the other week where Kenny Omega, of course, were partners with the Elite, with the Young Bucks. And after the match, he was relentlessly, I believe it was Marco Stunt who was taking the brunt of it after the match. And we just saw a big different side of Kenny Omega come out. He was very late to saving Hangman Page this week when it comes to the Dark Order. It really adds a bit of spice for that tag team match because, like you said, Hangman for the longest time has been the one that's been a bit distant, but it feels like that he's so over with the AEW crowd. Everyone seems to be on board with him, and with obviously everyone loves a bit of alcohol in that sort of gimmick. As we mentioned Stone Cold earlier, the beer drinking, he seems to be always there at the bar. In fact, an unlicensed bartender even came up on the graphic at one point, which I thought was genius from AEW. For me, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think Kenny Omega would be great as the one that turned heel because I think he's just been a bit bland at this particular point. I feel that he's not been the Kenny Omega that we've been used to in New Japan as we wanted to see in the United States. And I just feel that because obviously they want to build new stars, and I think AEW are right to do that. But at the same time, I feel that he's let too many people pass him by, and I feel that he's dropped down the pecking order. So I feel a heel turn may be just the thing he needs to spice him back up and push him back up towards the main event. I don't know how you feel about that.
I completely agree. And when you think at the moment, I mean, it's probably the one area of AEW where you kind of think, who else is there to challenge at the top title at the moment with everyone else is preoccupied? Omega as a heel up against Dean Ambrose, Moxley, would be an awesome match. I think, and especially when you've got heel Omega in that as well. And it could just, again, it leads to a lot more different matches because we're used to seeing him as a tag wrestler at the moment, it seems, in AEW. So you'll get him back into singles matches a lot more. And I just think it would be a nice direction for them to add another element to the top level in the main title.
Absolutely, and I think you hit another nail on the head there, putting people towards the main event, because also AEW's tag team division is stacked. I mean, there's so many tag teams. Some of them don't even get TV, and they're really talented guys. And we've got these two single stars that have held the belts now since January. You feel that the time is coming where those belts need to switch hands somewhere. I'm not sure if it's the Dark Order that's going to be the ones that are going to be taking them this upcoming week on AEW. But I do wonder if we get to perhaps where we're near All Out, maybe. Maybe FTR could be the tag team. Maybe they're going to hold off that tag team match with the Young Bucks just a bit longer. The friction hasn't quite happened there yet. It seems to be with FTR and Omega. Could you see that being potentially the tag team title match there?
I think so, especially with FTR. Probably the deal that they came in on was to be one of the top teams in the tag division. So I think that'd work. I would also predict that it could be Omega that turns on Page in that match and costs them the titles and walks out on his partner. Maybe that could be the final turn. Maybe, but I don't see it being just a clean finish. I think, and that would probably set up a nice little feud as well between, and it'd put Hangman Page back into the into the singles kind of dynamic as well, rather than being a tag wrestler again. So again, he is so good that he should be in that singles division anyway. I'm surprised they went down that route actually, with having two singles wrestlers as the tag champs, as the kind of the top guys in the tag division, when they've got so many top level tag teams.
Absolutely. I mean, we mentioned the Bucks already, FTR, we've got the Lucha Bros, Santana Ortiz, Private Party. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, some of them even can't even make TV or on Dark as well. So, I mean, it just shows what a strong, in-depth division that they really do have. And like you say then, when we mentioned about those guys being able to go back to the singles style, we've seen Moxley, a former WWE guy, go against the Brody Lee, a former WWE guy, Jake Hager, Chris Jericho. It's nice to see if we got Omega, Hangman, MJF, Cage is still around. We can have the AEW's almost, I mean, Cage probably not homegrown, but we see a few more of the homegrown guys towards the top of the card challenging John Moxley. I think that certainly is a direction that AEW need to take going into the next 6 months of their product, if you were to ask me. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, I do agree. I do wonder whether they've not done that just to kind of steer away from the favouritism tag that you might get because they're the people that created the brand, essentially. Well, a lot of them names that you mentioned are. So you wouldn't want it to come across as, well, they're the guys that run it, so they're just putting themselves in the top tier. So maybe that's the reason why they've gone down the road that they have. But yeah, I agree. I think it would be nice to see people that aren't just ex-WWE guys.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree. But I think it's a very interesting point from AEW this week. And AEW for me, I mean, just it's one of many great factors from that show this week. I've said it already in a couple of videos now I've done. AEW really brought the fun factor this week on Dynamite. Really what I enjoy from a wrestling show. And I hope they can continue the momentum. This was my favourite Dynamite ever this week. So I really think that they need to continue the direction they're going. Definitely.
Well, while I'm on tag wrestling, that moves me on to my next one as well, which was actually from the night before, which was on Impact. The Motor City Machine Guns.
Absolutely, yes. They're back in business.
Back in business. I mean, so quick as well. I mean, we were only talking about this last week, about them coming back at Slammiversary. I felt it was a little bit too much, them being involved in 2 segments on the pay-per-view, but lo and behold, they were. And then to come back and then just beat the tag team who have been kind of tag champs for how long?
Over a calendar year. They won it the night before Slammiversary last year, so just over 1 full calendar year.
It's mad, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on whether you think that's a right booking move for them.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I wanted the North to retain. I was shocked with the championship change. It's not often that my jaw hits the table, but it did on this occasion. What I would say is that goes in a positive standpoint. So I like to try and keep it positive a lot of the time with the booking standpoint. They want to make headway as Impact. They want to come back to being a talking point. And they did that with Slammiversary. They built the pay-per-view so well. They made a top tag team match that they could make for this show. And what better way to get people talking about the product even more than a title change? Because that's clearly the big deal here of what they could do. Because if the North retains, they only, again, had one tag team left to defeat, and then they've done the entire division. So they now have a point where they need to come back and try and win those belts back. It really freshens up that division straight away with that title change. So I think that's the direction that I think they wanted to go with it. And I think as well, if Motor City Machine Guns at some point drop the belts, they can start to be the team then that elevates other tag teams, being one of the greatest Impact or TNA, if you want, tag teams of all time. So I'm hoping that's the direction it's going to go, and that we've not got another 12-month reign going on here. But I wonder what your thoughts were with the situation then.
I mean, they've not shown to be, or should I say, they've not shown to have any ring rust or anything like that. They've looked really good at Slammiversary, they did, and in the show on Impact this week. They are one of the best tag teams in TNA and Impact history. So, you know, it's no different to the Hardy Boys coming back really in WWE and taking the gold on their return. So there's comparisons in that respect. I was a little surprised that it was them, like you said, that they put the belts on. I thought it was going to be the Good Brothers. But looks like they've got their own program set up with who's
to be Reno Scum, and we've also started with Ace Austin and Van Fulton as well there.
Yeah, so they look like they've got their own program set up anyway. And again, maybe it's not doing what they've done in the past, Impact, which is bringing some WWE guys and put belts straight on them, which we've seen in the past. So maybe kudos are given to Impact for that. But yeah, I think you're right. Maybe it could be something to build and a fresh challenge for the North, because maybe it has become a little bit stale with the competition on that division as well. Yeah,
you never know what's ahead and what's on the horizon. Like you say, normally former WWE guys come in and win the belt straight away. This way, a former one of their teams just come in and won the belt straight away. So I suppose it's building their brand up and trying to, you know, make Impact the show of what it once was, and perhaps maybe a name like the Motor City Machine Guns will get the old fans invested again and maybe tune into Access TV. So hopefully for them, they can continue in the good direction. I mean, Eric Young this week has said that obviously they do their recordings in batches, and they've probably got the next few weeks already pre-recorded, and apparently some exciting TV to look out for. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they continue to do going forward, whether it's the Motor City Machine Guns or whether it's any of the releases or debuts that have come in, or the returnees, should I say, and what they're going to produce next on Impact Wrestling, because it's definitely exciting times for them, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and you know, with EC3 coming back, that's a big draw now for them, because he was one of the top guys there, if not the top guy. So to have him back and have a darker side to his character, it seems, I think that's going to be interesting. I'm not sure about the dynamic with him versus Moose, because I kind of put them both now as kind of more so because of the way EC3's re-emerged on Impact. They both seem to be heels. That's the impression that I get. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, I think that'd be interesting.
I'm certainly excited to see where it's going to head next. Like you say, you've got definitely a darker side of EC3, and it'll be interesting to see if that darker side is for good or for bad. But either way, it's definitely good if you're an Impact fan.
Definitely.
Well, I think we should move on to our next point, which should be point number 5. We're on to number 5 of this week.
Yep, last point from SmackDown, and I think this is long overdue. It's a shame it's had to come this way, but Big E looks like he's going to be given a singles push now. I'm excited by that.
Yeah, I mean, it's big news. The only thing I find a bit strange by it, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this straight away, is that Kofi's words were that you don't want to be held back. You don't want to be the guy that's been here a decade and not got your way to show of it. You've been selfless with us for 6 years. Well, in December, Big E would have been on the main roster for 8 years. So he would not be far off the 10-year mark already. And also, Kofi's only out for 6 weeks. So I'm not sure what happens when the 6 weeks are up. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here with the New Day when Kofi returns.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what the time expectancy is for Xavier Woods to come back either. You know what that is?
No, I haven't a clue. I mean, Xavier hasn't really... The last time we saw Xavier was on WWE Backstage, and he looked like he could walk. He certainly could dance. But it certainly didn't look like he was ready for the ring as of yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I also like the idea. There's loads of different avenues you can go down on with Big E as well, because Kofi's words, that they have his back, they support him on whatever he decides to do. What if Big E starts actually acting heelish and they actually start questioning the moves he actually makes? What if we see a completely different Big E to what we've had previously?
It's a good way to turn it, because it then adds a different flavour to it when the others are back, and how they deal with him, because that's where you could start seeing fractures in the New Day. But yeah, definitely, I think that could be a good move.
I hope so. Do you see him going for the mid-card titles, or can you see Big E actually going towards the top of the card?
I don't see him going to the top of the card straight away with the matches that they've got going on with Braun and Bray Wyatt at the moment. I think he probably will go IC title. That's on SmackDown, isn't it? So yeah. So do you know what? I don't even know who's holding that now. Who's holding the IC?
AJ Styles is currently the holder.
I mean, that would be an interesting match, because they're completely different physiques, different builds. I think that could be really interesting. There's no point having him in a singles run if he's just going to be having kind of bog standard matches. He needs to have some sort of story going into the next 6 weeks while there is injuries to the rest of the group. So yeah, and then see how that plays out when they come back.
I hope so. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how the dynamic goes. Like you say, we can't just throw him in a rivalry with someone like a King Corbin, for example, and it not go anywhere. You know what I mean? You need some excitement there, and I think that there is a good times ahead, hopefully, for Big E. I think that there certainly is they must have had an idea to do this, because they wouldn't just announce it on SmackDown. It felt like a very short segment, but something that was impactful and meaningful, and hopefully going to be something bigger going down the line. So I'm hoping it's going to be exciting and big times ahead for Big E. And I do agree with you. I do think that the mid-card is currently the right place to put him in, rather than the actual championship picture. I mean, Kofi's kind of came out of nowhere, but Big E's, I feel at the moment, there isn't that crowd there to really sort of push it on a bit further, give it that extra push that it needs. Social media is definitely a key, because I know a lot of fans want to see Big E push towards the top. But I think at the best, I think if they wanted to start now, they could make it in time for WrestleMania. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, definitely. Which is mad to think it's not really that far away, really. But the thing is, even if we go back probably 6 months ago, people were craving for Big E to turn on the New Day then. So, or even with Kofi's push, they all thought when he was champion, they thought Big E might turn because of jealousy or things like that. That's what people wanted to happen. So now, hopefully, Vince and the rest of the creative team have got the right ideas for what they're going to do with him, and hope it's not just a flash in the pan.
No, hopefully not. I mean, I have come up with a couple of ideas of what I'd like to see. I don't know if I could run them by you and see what your thoughts were, but I mentioned the idea of Big E doing questionable decisions that perhaps Kofi would actually start questioning whether he would like those ideas or not. We could have perhaps Xavier being the hacker storyline. Who remembers the hacker, everybody? That seemed to disappear to thin air. Maybe Xavier is the hacker all along, and we see the New Day actually split towards this because they've all gone different directions, and we finally get that New Day triple threat match. I don't know how you'd feel about that.
I mean, I think it's got to happen someday. It's all good teams. I can't think of any teams that haven't had a split and then a feud at some point, and then even if they come back together again. The alternative is that you have, if it was the hacker in the background as Xavier Woods, then Big E turns, and then Kofi's not happy, and then you've got Xavier and Big E as a kind of a duo rather than a three. One thing that hasn't happened for a very long time is the New Day going full turn as a group. You could easily see something like that happen again, which I'd actually be quite keen to see. I know they must be probably the top guys for merch sales with WWE, which is a potential drawback. But sometimes teams need that, and individual wrestlers need that to freshen them up again. I don't like it where it goes back and forth, a Big Show-esque, as me and you have mentioned many a time. But I think it's probably overdue a freshen up with the New Day.
Yeah, I think so. A number of people seem to be keen on the idea of something happening with the New Day. That it feels that the actor's kind of gone as far as it can for the time being, and it would be nice to just do something to freshen it up, even if it's not a heel turn. Maybe it's something that just keeps them going. But I think I would be in favour of a breakup, and I'm going to go with one really bold, wild idea for you just to finish off, because we mentioned something earlier in this video, and I'm just bringing it back full circle before we close up, I guess, with the 5 points. What if, I mean, superstars are changing shows willy-nilly. What if Big E was to turn on the New Day? What if Big E was to win the triple threat match or a match against Kofi? What if he was to go to Monday nights? What if he was to be a part on the key part of pushing as the face of the Hurt Business?
Yes, I get that. I'd worry that he's too similar in a way to Bobby Lashley. Like Bobby Lashley is the muscle of that group, I would say. So to then bring in Big E, you got a conflict of two very similar, maybe not necessarily in ring style, but the size, the build. Do you know what I mean? At the moment you've kind of ticked a few boxes because MVP's kind of the ringleader of them all. Bobby Lashley's the muscle. Shelton Benjamin, don't get me wrong, he's no slouch when it comes to his size, but he's not expecting to be your top guy of a faction. So I think it suits their roles at the moment and where he would fit in that. If you had someone like Xavier Woods in it, I would say that for me would actually fit probably better because he could be almost the brains of it, because he's with his qualifications and things like that. And he's a smaller guy in some respects. So, but for Big E, I think it'd be interesting if they done that, but I'm not sure. I would worry about the too many similarities with him and Bobby.
Absolutely. I hear those points, and I actually think that the points you're making are solid and on point. And I actually like the idea of Xavier more, like you say, a smaller guy. I mean, like you say, the differences on all the guys that are there, something to bring something to the table. And like Shelton's such an agile competitor. Bobby the muscle. MVP is the mouthpiece, and obviously, like you say, if you had the brains of an Xavier, it could take it all the way to the top. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with we mentioned some of those with the Hurt Business, and when we see someone like Big E as well. Big E would be hopefully going to have a successful run as a solo star. It will be interesting to see how it goes. And I think for you, as you said earlier on, I think the Intercontinental title, AJ Styles, that would be a great match for SummerSlam if they could put that together. I would be massively in favour of that now. And they've got a good amount of time to build that match as well now because we've got a few weeks to the pay-per-view. I think if AJ can put away Grand Metalik, which I think is a safe bet for next week, we could start moving him perhaps towards AJ and Big E. I think that will be a good move going forward.
Yeah, and just a shout out there to what they're doing with the Lucha House Party. With Grand Metalik getting an opportunity like this, that's really good that they've done that because they're often kind of overlooked for a lot of these things. I know it wasn't that long ago that they were put in a tag title picture, or at least for a very small amount of time they were. But it's nice that they're actually giving some of these guys, and I know he's so highly spoke of amongst other wrestlers, Grand Metalik, just because of how good he is in the ring and his ring style. I think it's really good that they've given him an opportunity. I'd be highly shocked if he was to go over AJ, but at least the fact he's been given an opportunity, I think it's really good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Absolutely, indeed. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on from this week before we close off today's show?
No, that's all my points. No, that's I didn't want to go for the big main event moments of every show. I thought it'd be good to pick out some of the ones that I thought were more interesting, potentially for longer term storylines. So I hope you think they're good choices.
I do indeed as well. I think that certainly is summed up as well some of the key points that look out from this week in wrestling. And I think that a lot of people, hopefully, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you've enjoyed this show, then SCW can do some form of This Week in Wrestling going forward in a weekly sort of format, whether it's just myself, whether James, if you want to come back in for another show, whether we have other guests as well. I'm sure we can try and make something where this could become a regular thing if you guys are into that sort of thing. But like I said as well, James, thank you so much for coming on this evening. It's been great. It's great to have you here. And like I say to everyone that has been listening to this, go and check out This Week in Metropolis. Like I said, the description is in there, whether you're looking on YouTube, whether I can get this on Spotify as well. Go and check them out because honestly, some great content. And the newest show this week was the top 5 box sets as well. And yeah, I mean, if you wanted to ask mine, the Attitude Era, ECW, you know, we've got them all in there. So yeah, we can cover those for you as well. But that's all from us anyway. James, thank you so much once again for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. Please share with a friend, spread the word of SCW as well. If you're checking out the video for the first time, hit the bell, hit the subscribe button. Thank you to those that have been subscribing. Over 500 subscribers now, and definitely going to give some more content out for you viewers out there. Do appreciate your support. But that's all from me anyway. That's all from James as well. And would like to say as well, keep an eye out. The Q&A will be coming up in the next 24 hours as well. And we'll see you next time here on SCW. Take care. Thank you for watching.